Welcome back to torture. Chaos gender. When your gender does a lot of things that have no identifiable pattern or logic. Shira gender. A fluid gender that is always or often in opposition to its owner's desires. Cirque gender. A gender that feels so magical and grand as to be indescribable. Cloud gender. A gender which cannot fully be realized or seen clearly. Cocoon gender. A gender that has not come out yet or has yet to emerge in its full form. Help me. Help me. Cogito gender. A gender that is fluid only when one thinks about it. That was cogito fluid. Cogito gender, a gender that only exists when you think about it. Koi gender, a gender that feels like it's on mute. Call gender, having too many simultaneous genders to describe each one. Color gender, a gender associated with one or more colors. Com gender, to experience gender polar opposite of agender. Commo gender, when you know you aren't cisgender but you settle for your assigned gender for the time being. Condigender, a gender only felt under certain circumstances. Contigender, a gender that flows through space and time and constantly changes and is always moving, of course. Koru gender, a gender affected by flashbacks of you being a retarded buffoon that needed a personality, so got a really bad one. Cosmic gender, a gender so vast and or complicated that it can only be possible a bit at a time. Crypto gender, gender identity that one cannot discern, describe, or define in words. There are like so many of those. Can we stop? Christogender, a fluid gender that experiences one's gender being fractured or broken into pieces and put back together again. Cyclogender, a gender identity that changes with one's menstrual cycle. Daemogender, a gender closely related to demons and the supernatural. D-boy, for masculine identified or partially masculine identified people that still feel a connection to feminine energy due to their spirituality. Intended for pagans. Delphigender, a mysterious, obscure, and sinister gender. Demi-fluid flux, having multiple genders where some are satanic and other are fluid flux. Demigender, feeling partially one gender and partially something else. DG gender, a digital gender. It can range from any digital thing or file. Dom gender, being multiple genders with one dominant gender. Drake fluid, when your gender fluctuates but you can't find a few terms to describe what your fluctuating gender is, so you fucking hoard gender terms that fit to you. Dryagender, a form of agender that is best represented by an empty, tranquil forest. The fuck? What the fuck is this? Why am I doing this to myself? Dulcigender, an aesthetically centered gender that is associated largely with stereotypical female things. Duragender, a subcategory of polygender with an indefinable, long-lasting gender, blah, blah, blue, blah, blah. Earth gender, a gender identity that is directly affected, tied to, or influenced by the earth or nature. Ectogender, a gender that seems elusive, constantly out of your grasp and impossible to pin down. Efru, a scary, non-binary gender. If it's non-binary female, it's called Efril. If it is non-binary masculine, it is called Efron. So I guess now they're making Zac Efron a gender. Agog gender. Oh, ego gender. Agog. A gender which can only be described as the individual. Gender. A gender one has blown up into a million pieces or destroyed via detonation. Eldrig gender. A gender which is dark, nebulous, and ultimately unknowable. Gender. An ethereal gender that is unable to be understood by either the individual or others. We're only in E. Element gender. A gender that consists of 4 primary paths that representatively feel linked to each element. Blah blah blah. Gender. A gender that randomly moves around with no direction or pattern. NB fluid. Gender fluidity between multiple non-binary genders. Endogender, having fluctuated or fluid gender feelings that are limited to a certain area of gender, such as masculine, female, and neutral. Energender, a gender that seems like a ball of energy. Enthogender. Enthogender? A gender similar to psychedelic or spiritual experience. Entrogender, a gender that feels as if it's fading away. Equigender, being multiple genders in perfectly equal parts. Espigender, a gender which is related to being a spirit or exists in higher and extra-dimensional planes. Oh my god. Evis gender, a fluid gender influenced by surroundings. X-gender, an outright refusal to accept or identify in. Execo-gender, a gender which, when thought about, feels empty. Existed gender, a gender which only exists or is noticeable when thought about. Expigender, a gender which changes depending on who you are around. Explorer gender, a gender dedicated to the feeling and exploring many different genders. Fae gender, a gender that changes with seasons. Fascigender, a gender experience largely related to a special interest for autistic people. Fauna gender, a gender influenced by animals. Fawn gender, a gender that is explored through timidly and caution. Felis gender, a small cat-like gender. Femme fluid, having fluctuating or fluid gender feelings that are female genders. Femme gender, a non-binary gender which is feminine in nature. Fire gender, a fluid gender in constant state of change that never truly extinguishes. Fish gender, a gender experience that is in some way split, similar. Flirt gender, a gender which you primarily interaction with gender feelings is that of flirtatiousness. Flower gender, a gender that is more strongly felt during the daytime than at night. Fluid flux, a combination of gender fluid and gender flux. Fog gender, a gender which is close to a certain gender. Frost gender, a gender that feels cold and snowy. Fuzz gender, when you know that you're a certain gender but it can't explain why. Gemel gender, having 2 genders which are equally or primarily fluid genders. Gemi gender, having 2 opposite genders that work together. Gemini gender, a gender identity that is mostly a gender, but sometimes changes. Gender tail, a gender that is hard to describe, mainly associated with plants, herbs, and liquids. Gender blank, having a gender which can only be described as a blank space. Alright, well that was part 2. Guess what? We're still at G. Please tell me they're all in the beginning of the alphabet.